The story for Deadpool follows the merc with a mouth himself, Deadpool, as he forces High Moon Studios, the developers of this game, to develop his very first video game. And that's where the story starts off, with Deadpool going after a contract named Chance White, but supervillain Mr. Sinister and his cohorts botch that contract, and of course that means Deadpool loses money, and Deadpool does not like to lose money. So Deadpool, along with the X-Men and Cable, must go and stop Mr. Sinister before he hatches his evil plan of making armies of clones to do his bidding, his evil biddings. So that's pretty much the story. This story is hopped up on sugar because it never slows down, ever. It's always throwing new things into the mix, and when it's not doing that, Deadpool is constantly talking to the two voices in his head, don't ask, the many characters he comes in contact with, like of course Wolverine, Cable, Def, just all these characters. Or he'll be talking to you as a player because, of course, Deadpool breaks the fourth wall all the time. And it just always goes, it always introduces these new oddball things, or Deadpool's just constantly talking. And guess what? It is entertaining as hell. I love the story here because if you explain it, it's pretty simple, besides, of course, the whole video game aspect to it. But still, it's a simple story. But then you have Deadpool, who's just an insane character, and it just goes all over the place. It just goes into just strange places. And I absolutely love it, and I think it's a hilarious story all the way throughout. So there you go. I think the story here is freaking awesome. The sound for Deadpool is all about the voice acting, or should I say the voice actor, because Nolan North, one of the greatest voice actors ever, not only voices Deadpool, but also voices the two voices in his head as well. And if you didn't know from past games, he is perfect as Deadpool. He adds a nice amount of zaniness to his voice for Deadpool, and the two voices are different from one another. One's a little more childish, and the other one is a little more serious, so North gets to do more than just be loud and crazy throughout the entire game. And also he gets to play off his own comedic hijinks because he's pretty much talking to himself throughout the entire game. The rest of the voice acting is great with some usual talents we see all the time, like Fred Tatasciore, I'm pretty sure that's how you say his name, and Steve Blum, to name a couple. The sound design is good with a nice amount of gun and melee noises that don't get too repetitive, thanks to the soundtrack, which is usually pretty loud and energetic during the gameplay, but I did notice that sometimes it stopped playing out of nowhere or just never played at all, which I thought was kind of weird, but overall I think the sound here is great. Now the graphics for Deadpool are good, but not great. The character models are plentiful and look really good, especially Deadpool, who has this really cool regenerating effect when his body gets all banged up, which reminds me of that X-Men Origins game that came out a couple years ago, which Wolverine could do the same exact thing. And also, the action never really skips a beat. It's always flashy and fun to look at. Now, environments are a mixed bag because at times they can be very inventive, fun, and ridiculous, but other times they can be so generic and bland looking. Also, I did notice some bad texturing and glitches at times, which could definitely bring down the experience for some. But overall, I still think the graphics are decent, but nothing amazing. They are definitely flawed. Now let's talk about the gameplay, and Deadpool is a beat-em-up slash shoot-em-up style action game with plenty of different enemy types to fight, high combos to get, weapons to unlock, and upgrades to acquire. Now, we've played plenty of action games recently, but the off-kilter brand of humor and hilarious set pieces is what really sets Deadpool apart from the rest. Not to say the gameplay itself is bad, because it definitely is not. You go from place to place killing enemy after enemy and acquiring high combos so you can get DP points, that's funny, which can be used to buy new weapons and either weapon or player upgrades. You start off with Deadpool's swords and pistols, but then you can start buying weapons like shotguns, hammers, machine guns, grenades, bear traps, yeah, there's bear traps, and pulse rifles. Oh, and by the way, Deadpool can dual wield all of these weapons. So yes, that's right, Deadpool is such a badass he can dual wield 2 shotguns. Hell yeah. At first, the gameplay is really fun, fast, and controls nicely, but then repetition starts to follow. But luckily, this is when the game allowed me to buy new weapons, and even started to introduce more of the silly moments in the game, and from there, I was hooked. Being able to upgrade almost every single weapon you get is great, especially since it actually feels like you are making these weapons more badass with every upgrade. There are tons of different upgrades, and the more you use each weapon, the more you can unlock them and then buy them. And what's also great is that the hack and slash style of gameplay mixes real nice with the third person style shooting, which, while not amazing, is good enough to warrant using guns. Also, it's just feels so good to shoot a dude in the face with 2 shotguns sometimes. I mean, come on. So having the ability to get all these high combos so you can get more DP points and you can upgrade your character, make him more badass, make his weapons more badass, and the gameplay itself being fun just adds a lot to the entertainment factor, especially since the story itself just has so many great moments that just make you smile. Now, there is some parts in the gameplay that feel a little tacked on just so they can say they have variety. These include the stealth and platforming segments, which, does that sound familiar? Yeah, Star Trek the video game. But unlike that game, stealth is actually decent but unnecessary, especially considering what character this is based on. There are some nice and very brutal stealth kills though, so I'll give it that. And the platforming is also decent, but the camera is what really gets in the way. Sometimes you want to jump on a platform, but you just can't because the camera is too busy doing its own thing and it's just all cumbersome. Besides these, the gameplay has some pretty damn good set pieces and really fun gameplay. Along with the 6 to 7 hour single player campaign, there is also a challenge mode which is pretty straightforward. You can select a map and difficulty and you have to get through all of the enemies, kill them all, and get a high score before the time runs out, and that does add a little bit of replayability. Also, the game is fun, so that adds replayability right there. You can go back and try to get all the upgrades that you missed and whatnot and experience the really fun story once again. So overall, Deadpool isn't the best game out there, but it's tons of fun, really hilarious, and High Moon Studios did this character justice. I really enjoyed myself, and I cannot wait to see what else Deadpool will be in the future. So there you go, there's my review. It's a very fun game. Definitely go check it out. Thank you, and goodbye.
Deadpool back, babes mayhem! Could somebody get a microphone? Because this would be a perfect time to drop it! Ah!